I got my sauce back. It was like, I was just like in my element.
This is the Boulder Zone, the fusion of masculine advice and entertainment.
This is Sparta!
Here's your host, Marco Boulder.
Hello again, my fellow interwebbers. Thanks for tuning into the Boulder Zone. Today, I'm going to suspend our usual brand of no frills, unpolished manly talk and jocularity to bring you a special show. I'm stoked to have a legitimate, up-and-coming powerhouse singer, songwriter, and producer. She fuses pop, soul, hip-hop, and rock to deliver her one-of-a-kind sound and raw sex appeal that hits hard on all cylinders. She has 2 EPs and over a dozen sultry, in-your-face songs and music videos under her belt. And she's got a new album in the works. Here she is in her new music video that debuts today. It's called Cleavage. Her name, PHENIX RED.
Back with another one. I Scooby-Doo these bitches, no monsters for me. Bringing down my vibe when they lost the sea. Wanna be a boss, don't know how to lead. Fuck a bust and stitches, bitch, I barely bleed. I've been building confidence, second top 10, some top 10s. Now I'm decked out with options, all of them flawless. You heard my bop yet? I just got more honest. Love keeping it too real while y'all on that fake shit. Like looking important in something that's foreign, popping bottles, pushes for free. Wouldn't know how to be fucking authentic if you were just watching for me. I wear my attitude tight like cleavage. I let my balls hang low, that's cleavage. I rest my head up high like cleavage. I pissed my Spanish teacher off with cleavage. Yeah, double T. God said have the shit for free. He knew expensive things about me, with my time and energy. Yeah, that's cleavage. I pissed my Spanish teacher off with cleavage. Gonna do whatever the fuck I wanna do. You water yourself down like the clowns do. Yeah, you cloud your chakras, I water my roots. Straight protein, vegetables and fruit. I don't care about your gin and juice. I got a 10 to 2 studio en route. Breakfast, lunch, and a dinner too. Errands around town, better things to do than looking important in something that's foreign. Popping bottles, pushes for free. Wouldn't know how to be fucking authentic if you were just watching for me. I wear my attitude tight like cleavage. I let my balls hang low, that's cleavage. I rest my head up high like cleavage. I pissed my Spanish teacher off with cleavage. Yeah, double T. God said have this shit for free. He knew expensive things about me, with my time and energy. Yeah, that's cleavage. I pissed my Spanish teacher off with cleavage.
From her home in Music City, Nashville, Tennessee, say hello to PHENIX RED. Thanks for coming on the show today, girlie.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. You know, when my producer Paul recommended we get you on the show, he sent over the Cleavage video for me to look at and listen to. 2 bars in, I thought to myself, oh man, I kind of like this. So I listened to it again. Then I pulled up your YouTube channel to hear more songs. And PHENIX, all I can say is well fucking done. Very well done.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I'm glad you dig it.
So let's talk a little bit about Cleavage. I've got to hear the backstory to that song.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot actually, obviously. But in general, like I'm using cleavage as an acronym for like living your life boldly, right? Like I'm just gonna be in your face like some cleavage. I'm just gonna be real, raw, and who I am, no hiding. So that's kind of the message behind the song, but there was also a lot of healing and therapy that went in it from my part. It's actually a really vulnerable song. Um, Probably my most vulnerable I've put out, to be honest with you, because it touches on something that is extremely a big part of my life and what I've like a trauma that I've had. So everybody asks me about the I pissed my Spanish teacher off with Cleavage line. And I'll give you the exclusive if you're ready for it.
I am.
Um, good. So it's a little bit of some trauma. So I was in sixth grade, and I was in Spanish class. It was a class of maybe like 15 kids. And you know what happens to girls around that time, puberty, all these things. You don't really know though. Like you're not identifying with that yet, you know? So my teacher comes in and she's in the front of the class and she was like, okay, guys, like we're gonna play a game. Everybody like pay attention. So like everybody shut up. And they gave her their full attention, and we're all just sitting there like waiting to hear what this game is because we already hate class. And she goes, all right, so the game is called Paige, pull up your shirt. And like everybody looks at me. I'm mortified. I'm looking at myself. Everybody's staring at my chest. And I that was like my first moment of identifying with my cleavage and my chest. And it was a moment full of shame and disgust because of how she carried it out, embarrassing me in front of the whole class and then telling me that's extremely inappropriate, Paige. You really need to pull up your shirt. You need to put on a cardigan or something. And that was like my first moment associating with that. So that kind of carried with me throughout my adulthood. Through middle school and high school, I would wear like 3 extra small sports bras just to smush myself. And I'm a double D. So yeah, planning my own breast reduction, all these things. So like it took me a long time to be able to heal that, and I've just now begun to do so. And so that was a big part of this project and just embracing my sexuality as a woman.
That's horrible. I can't imagine as a male going through that. As a female, you're in that vulnerable age, and to have an adult, an authority figure, put that upon you. I mean, that's something that would take several years to unpack.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it was just the first incident of many. I had a lot of female teachers specifically, that really were, big catalysts for me to identify my body with shame, I guess, and then it was like when I was getting attention from boys or things like that, like it internalized a lot of rage in me, because it's just the way I saw myself. And so, getting sent home for wearing the same outfit somebody else was, but because I was built differently, like it was wrong. So that was definitely something that's taken me quite some time, even now with the videos I've shot for this song and with the promos I've used. I put myself out there in a very vulnerable space because I'm not comfortable with what I'm wearing, but I'm embracing myself and putting myself in that space so I can grow.
Well done, because your attitude comes out as very confident that you are comfortable in your skin and how you appear. And none of that is seen in your videos. So you've certainly come a long way. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You betcha. So you're originally from Wisconsin, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What made you choose Nashville to launch your career rather than LA or New York?
Yeah, it's so crazy, because like LA and New York are so like totally my vibe. I crave diversity, fashion, culture, boldness in general. So, nobody would really think, oh, the South, like you went to the South, and I did. But I follow my guidance. I follow, God. I follow my angels. I follow intuition, and so that was what really honestly led me to Nashville, through a series of random things. And I'm glad it happened. Nashville gave me a safe space to grow my brand, my artistry, and I was surrounded with people who loved and protected me. So I'm not overly jaded or full of really bad experiences as a woman in this business because of the protection I had.
We've both talked to Paul about all the musicians that have moved to the Nashville area from LA
Yeah.
and in New York and Chicago and in the different places. I think that is a great place to develop your craft. You don't have such a highly charged political environment around it. So,
For
it
sure.
it sounds like it was very conducive for you and how you're getting along in your career. You know,
Yeah.
y your name is I'm very interested in hearing more about that. Where did that come from?
Yeah.
What made you land on that for a brand?
So, a big part of like my life has been observing people around me and just the way things work, the way people function, the psychology of the world, the energy of the world, the whys. Like I'm a very like deep thinker about things like that. And it's a big part of my brand as well. So when I was growing up, I saw a lot of people in a lot of attitudes and patterns that I did not want to be. And one of the biggest things that was a reoccurring theme for me and people I loved mostly, especially, was this victim mentality. I knew that it was a decision and a choice. And so I dedicated my life to not being a victim, no matter what happens to me. No matter the ups and downs of life, that's the only consistency is that it will be up, then it will be down, and then it'll be up, and then it'll be down. So I decided to make the choice to be that warrior, to know when to fight and when to be that spiritual Buddha type of energy where it's like, we pray the pain away. Whatever it is, I'm just going to choose to overcome it and suck whatever I can out of it and evolve myself to a higher expression, a better version of me. So that was a big part of like my life and my message. And I was in a band and then I started doing a solo project on the side. I was just praying about like, trying to put out there like, okay, what would encompass everything that I'm trying to say? And I kept on getting these flashes of a phoenix in my head. And I was like, that's so true. Like that embodies everything I believe. The ability of death and rebirth consistently throughout your life and how so many things have to be crumbled down in order to be rebuilt in a newer, better version. And so that's kind of the energy that I pack into my branding, my music. Like you're never gonna get a sad song from me. Like you might get an emotional um even melancholy, but it'll always be powerful. It'll always be about an overcoming. It'll never be a woe is me, poor me, you won't text me back type of thing. Because I don't believe in that. And so that's what I really want to spread with my message.
How many times have you found yourself in the ashes in your life, in your career, and had to pull yourself up out of that?
Many, 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 many hundreds of micro times, but three massive rebirths. And I kind of track them, because I can feel it. And I live my life as a soul experiencing a human body. So that's what we're all doing. So I'm very in touch with that. And this recent rebirth was the hardest. I was just talking to my friend about it because it spanned a year and a half, and I'm still on the outer edges of it. But I'm the most lost I've ever been. um Things that were rooted in my focus, like where I was drawing my roots from, I feel like it got muddy over time, in this industry, in my adulthood, just living on my own, just life. um so there was a lot of things I had to gut, a lot of ego deaths. And this was different for me because when I was young and I moved to Nashville and I went through my first shift, I was shedding a part of me that I just didn't even want, like, and that was attached to where I grew up, all these things. This part of me that I'm going through this death and rebirth is the life that I built here. The version of me, my journey from the beginning of Phoenix to now, all these things. And it's like it's getting gutted, and I have to leave behind things that are not serving me. And those are not just, like things that I'm doing in my life physically, but also mental thoughts, so subconscious patterns, a lot of things. So it's definitely freaking terrifying because it definitely feels like this cement that I built myself now has to be gutted. And it's crazy.
I think that's a life lesson in itself for anyone. No matter if you're in the music industry, you pump gas, you work at the corner store, everyone is going to hit the bottom once in a while. It's what you do to pull you up, to use your analogy, from the ashes, learn from it, and drive on. No matter how many
For
times
sure.
it happens. Well done there. I mentioned in the onset of the show the various genres that influence your music. R&B, hip hop, pop, rock. But I'm curious, for pure marketing purposes, how do you categorize your sound?
I have no idea. I would love to know. Please, somebody out there tell me, because that is, I definitely think, one of the biggest hurdles for me when it comes to marketing as a brand. Because I'm not hip hop enough for the like hip hop playlist. I'm not pop enough for the pop playlist. I'm definitely not rock enough for the rock playlist, even though people that like rock music love my stuff, because that's definitely an influence of how I grew up. But I have no idea. Like, it's definitely hard, to make it easier on myself. I say pop hip hop. But like I said, like it's a fusion, it's a pioneering type of sound. I'm gonna stay true to it and until the doors open and they work. I think that I'm a lifestyle artist. I heard once there's three types of artists. There's the artist that people love because of the song more than the artist itself. They're attached to the songs. Then there's the artists that they're attached to their voice, like a Whitney Houston or an Adele, and then there's lifestyle artists. There's artists like Billie Eilish and Lady Gaga. And it's like, okay, cool. Like, their music maybe didn't even have a place at one point, but because people loved them, their brand and their energy so much, it finally had its time. And so that's where I'm sitting.
Folks, she's given you a task. If you can put her in that category that helps her with her marketing at the record store or that sort of thing, put it in the comments below. I'll see it. She'll see it. Hey, maybe you'll get an acknowledgement from that. That's awesome. So, like any artist that spent more than a couple of years on their craft, there's always a progression in your music, kind of a growth to that. What experiences have you had over the years that's inspired you to grow your style and grow your sound?
Yeah, well, I grew up writing all my music on piano, guitar, in my head. Those were the only instruments that I had to play off of. So my music definitely had, a very special organic sound within that. When I moved to Nashville, I started getting introduced to producers, and that was a whole new world of, like, oh my gosh, electronic beats, like new sounds, all these things that as a small town girl with no resources, I didn't even know. And so I dove headfirst into that. It was so exciting. I've spent a good portion of my career as Phoenix diving into writing with those new sounds, building those sounds. And a lot of that influence has come from the urban Southern community. That was what I've been engaged with. That's the group that was, surrounding me, the producers, their influences. So, Southern hip hop, Southern urban culture has done a huge impact for me.
Speaking of influences, what do you think your special sauce is that connects your music with your fans?
I think that it's all about the intentional energy that I put into it. I think that people, there's enough fake out there, there's enough whiny out there, there's enough blah out there. And I think that, like, I'm a lot of things, but I'm not blah. I'm ballsy, I'm authentic, I'm bold, I'm raw. Like, I've always been a very raw person with my energy and my approach to things. And I think that ultimately, that cuts through the noise, because I really am an artist. Like, I don't just do this. Like, this is my entire essence and energy. And that makes it only a matter of time, but that also, shines, and people, they like that because it reminds them of that part in themselves that they're searching for. We all want to connect with that. And I think that when you listen to music that inspires you, it's because there's a part of you that you're searching for in that sound or that energy that you want to cultivate and find in yourself again, remember in yourself. And I think that that's the experience I have with my fans.
Well, speaking of essence and energy, how about we check out another one of your videos?
That sounds good. Let's do it.
This is a crushing little number called Goat.
If my soul sounded like something, this would be it. Must think I'm dumb, that's how you play me. Get off your horse, you didn't save me. I'm crazy. You're sad and slow and you're lazy, huh? Yeah, you thought you could control me, huh? Acting like the Patrick Swayze's, huh? I was like $1 per daisy. Do your shitty burrito, huh? Done carrying your weight, no cargo. I won't take it back today or tomorrow. You can even keep the shit that you borrowed. This right here's the last time you put me in a cage. Bitch, I never really age. I'm like, diamonds, get the fuck out the flames. Yeah, like, let me rain down, yeah, let me rain down, yeah, yeah. Oh, you know, yeah, yeah, I'm the goat, yeah, yeah. So you know, like, let me rain down, yeah, let me rain down, yeah, yeah. You know there's not too many people that don't fuck with me. What makes you think that you're so special? You deserve my peace, yeah. I think we should see other people. This ain't really headed for the steeple. I don't want you reruns or sequels. I'm done, so done falling for you. Done carrying your weight, no cargo. I won't take it back today or tomorrow. You can even keep the shit that you borrowed. This right here's the last time you put me in a cage. Bitch, I never really age. I'm like, diamonds, get the fuck out my flames. Yeah, like, let me rain down, yeah, let me rain down, yeah, yeah. Oh, you know, yeah, yeah, I'm the goat, yeah, yeah. So you know, like, let me rain down, yeah, let me rain down, yeah, yeah.
You released that just a few months ago, right? That video?
Yeah, at the end
Okay.
of 2022.
Okay. What was your inspiration in writing Goat?
You know, I was going through uh, like the beginning of my rebirth, honestly, and like anything, I channel a lot of my writing while I'm going through things. Um, I'm not a very like I don't show up to a write or a session with a title and I'm like, let's make this work. I'm a channeler. So like whatever I write, I have no idea what the F I'm writing until it's done. And 100% of the time when I'm done writing it, I'm learning how I'm actually feeling. I learn what my spirit is actually going through. Like I it's not until I go back and listen to all my music that I'm realizing what I'm going through. So when I was going through last year and I was diving headfirst into this ego death, I was releasing a lot. And a big catalyst for me was the relationship I was in at the time. Um, it spanned 8 years. It was a long relationship, and it taught me a lot of things about myself. It opened up spaces for healing and growth. And ultimately, you know, whether or not every single thing, I'm going through, I'm writing about in like a very like obvious way, this was kind of like my song of reclaiming my power because I feel like I gave so much of myself externally outside and I was being, I guess my happiness or like different things, like my confidence, like a lot of things was mixed out here externally. And I had to like reclaim myself. So this was a reclaiming of that. And it also an opening of me embracing my sexuality. I put myself through a lot of crap in that video. One, I don't like pink. I wore pink. Um, Two, I was in lingerie. Don't do that. That was never something I did. I've lived the majority of my life in my masculine energy. And I'm actually a very feminine individual, but I have lived in my masculine space because most of my life I had to hold that space because there was never anybody else to hold that. So I was never safe enough to lay down the tools. I had to do it all because there was never anybody to rely on. And in my relationship, I got to experience what that balance was like, somebody else, having my back in a true fashion. But relationships are hard. We go through things. It opens up trauma bonds. It opens up a lot of things. And so there was a lot of spaces in there where things got hard and I reverted back to that energy. So in this video, I threw myself into my femininity. I had one look where I was super androgynous, where it was like it could go both ways. I had one look that was super masculine with my, jumpsuit and, my welding gear and shit. And then I threw myself into this feminine space. But it was so funny because on set, I started with the hardest scene, which was the feminine scene, the like whatever. And it was so funny because I went to give my performance and I'm so used to being like, yeah, bah, 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 ha, here's my coat. You know it. I'm this, like. And I was like, whoa, I can't do that. I'm in lingerie. I've got to be like, oh, yeah. I'm the girl. And I was like, what the fuck? I don't even like, I don't know how to do this. Like, I had to like stop the camera. I was like, I would probably look like an idiot. Like, I don't feel right. Like, this is so uncomfortable. Like, I almost cried multiple times. Like, the whole scene, the whole set energy just went so low because I was like, I don't trust myself. I don't know what the F I'm doing. I was uncomfortable the entire time. Then I switched into the welding uniform and it was like, I got my sauce back. It was like, I was just like in my element, comfortable, I'm protected, blah, blah, blah. And it was so interesting to observe that in myself and how deep that runs. So yeah, that was a big catalyst for me embracing my femininity again, regardless is if I have that masculine space there.
How do you feel coming out of the other side of that video? Once you have embraced your masculinity, how has that affect or I'm sorry, your femininity? How has that affected you going forward now? Are you more comfortable in that feminine skin in that type of environment in those clothes?
Yeah, yeah, I am. I think that, it's just, it's hard. I think that my relationship really showed me what it was like for the first time to feel that way and to be in that space comfortably and then to have that ripped away from me. And, when there's trust, it will be broken, and that is just how things go in the world. But, how you handle things and how you decide to grow from that are the ultimate test because we all make mistakes, right? But it really showed me that like I can't like, yes, I can do things for myself. I'm a capable bitch. So I can change my tire, my oil. I can provide, I can do all these things for myself. Do I want to exist in this like space forever? My natural internal world doesn't. I want to be able to blossom like a beautiful flower, but I have to water myself and find the sun and find the soil and do all this stuff. So it's like I'm not living in my highest expression, but I've found a way, I think, coming through this to embrace that sensualness, embrace the compassion, embrace the nurturing, and live in that space and not have to have my pitchfork all the time. So I'm learning how to be in my natural state that I want to be in without the influence of somebody else holding that space for me. And that was a big catalyst, I think, for a lot of it, for my sexuality, which was a big part. I was holding a lot of that back. And I was very harsh as a result. And so now I'm not. And so, I'm at the beginning of this little journey, but I'm digging it. It's really cool. It's powerful feeling. I feel really powerful.
Great. Folks, lesson 2 right there. You have to step into that zone of being uncomfortable with something. And I think most people will be surprised how they feel after they've done that, after they've come out of that. It empowers you, it brings up your confidence. Don't be afraid to kind of ease into it maybe the first time and give it a pull and see what happens. I guarantee if more people did that, they'd stepped into that a little bit and kind of saw it. It's not so scary. I'm not going to fail. I'm not going to look like a fool, whatever it is. They would be more confident in their life goals. It doesn't matter if it's music or whatever. So, lesson 2 right there today. You know, your music is definitely you. That's That's what I get out of it. But I also get a little taste of Evanescence and Lady Gaga in your music. Am I tracking?
Yeah. Yeah, you got it. I mean, those were like the two. I mean, I had a huge obsession with Avril Lavigne. That was like my punk angsty. Like, I just love a good feminine female role model who is just bold, you know? And so when Evanescence hit the scene and won Best New Artist, I think it was in 2009, maybe 2008, but I think 2009. I was at the peak of like, you know, I was in middle school and like I was just really finding new identities in my writing, and it was a really big catalyst for me. As she was so powerful and emotional and like dark and deep, and I resonate with that so much. Maybe it's all the Scorpio in my chart, but it's my vibe. And then when Gaga came around, it was like this theatrical performance. It was like, okay, cool. Like, my interest in her wasn't as much the production of her music, but her melodies, her theatrics that they put inside of this, like, dance music essentially. And she was always theatrical and always like just this loud expression. It just like freed me. It was like, oh, cool. Like, I can go balls to the wall and like it be accepted, it be a thing. Like, it unleashed my inner freak. I loved it.
Well, beyond fame and fortune, I like to ask people this question. What are your future music business aspirations and goals? Let's put
I,
this ahead 5, 10 years.
I'm glad you asked that because I have all those plans. One, I'm really into directing and editing music videos. I would love to do that alongside my own career. I love creating like masterpieces of art. I would love to play with the big budget someday. Like, that would be amazing. I also want to take all my piano records and write a musical, something that I can take on Broadway and adapt it into film. Like, I just love theatrics, and there hasn't been a space, I think, on radio for the type of music that I write on piano. So that's a big goal of mine. Something that, like how Lady Gaga even had her jazz era and stuff, like just something that gives a palette, right, to like the core of who I am. So I would love to do that. And then I also have lots of nonprofit ideas. One of the biggest things that I want to do is I want to fund a nonprofit that take submissions from kids that don't have access to like studios and things like that, where it's like they're maybe in a small town, or maybe they are, from a poor family, and they don't have resources, but they have all this talent, right? I want to be able to cultivate that. I want to be able to be a resource for those kids where they can submit like, hey, this is a song I wrote, or hey, this is, something, this is an idea that I have, like, because a big part of my mourning when I got into my adult years was I saw so many people so far ahead than I was at my age because of the resources that they had younger than me. I was like 20 having access to the things that kids had when they were 12. So I had to be okay with the fact that in this lifetime, my success comes later. I'm not popping off when I'm 18. I have to put in the time and the resources later. So what I would like is to be an ally and a place of resource for kids that were like me, little kids that had all the ability and all the prodigy type of energy to have something like that.
After Phoenix agreed to come on my show, we met in Nashville for kind of a pregame meeting. We not only discussed her musical career, but other things like she just talked about there that she's passionate about. One of those things I recall is helping women with significant unresolved issues, much like what you've gone through. I know that's not limited to just women for you. You'll sit down with a man or anybody else, and things like people who are trying to navigate today's judgmental culture. I mean, that's a real issue for women as well.
Yeah.
As you mentioned earlier, especially in the lyrics of Cleavage, can you speak directly to your personal struggles growing up with those similar problems that would resonate with other women out there or other people?
I think that the biggest thing is being able to have the conversation. Um, I think that if we are all focused on an internal dedication to our own growth, then, you know, hopefully we can bridge this gap. Because what I'm seeing is um, a very symptomatic, like multiple symptoms from this root cause, which is like this an imbalance going on that's in a lack of ability to communicate through that. And so it's just a bunch of hatred and anger being built up and thrown on all sides. It's making it's like no different than watching families and like how the family unit is in our world right now. It's an external mirror of that out here and how we're all acting, and it's really sad because like I see it all day long, just people just trading traumas, trading trauma bonds, creating more trauma in each other's lives, getting in these situationships, or oh, that's a red flag, I gotta run. Well, yo, chill out. Like maybe it's not the reddest of flags. Like be be aware of things. Like we all are gonna come with things to work on, but it's important to just be finding and connecting with people that want to better themselves and are on a path of growth, because nobody's perfect. And I think that there's so much of this energy around, oh, I don't need you and you don't need me, because that's the way that we can protect ourselves the most. And we're just in this like fight or flight protection mode, because in reality, the feminine space is freaking out because they're finally free from, having to marry to have money and all these things that are in our history. And oppressed groups in general are just going, to the utmost extremes, because that's the energy that they've been holding in. And then the other side of things is getting a very rage like energy, a very anger, hatred like energy, because they don't know how to have this conversation together. So ultimately, like, I would love to be a part of the conversation that bridges that, where we can where men and women can have these conversations, learn from each other, accept each other, and also call each other out when it's like, okay, like, it's hard for me because I still have a lot of healing to do on that. Like there's a lot of things that trigger me that, I don't feel like, in a relationship right now that I'm, in the most healthy of state, accepting the balance. So it's like I just want to be able to be a positive light in that, where we can have an open conversation and bridge it, because I love women, I love men, I want both to live their highest expression of themselves. I don't hold any hatred. I think that this is a big mess, and I think that it's up to us for the next 40 years to fix it. And I think that we can create a better society if we do.
On that subject, when we were talking in Nashville, you sat down. You told me you were about to sit down with a group of women or several women to help them deal with some of these unresolved issues. How did that go?
It went amazing. I mean, the shoot was focused around, cleavage and, our bodies, and how we feel, how our identity is, put onto them. As being women, like, your physical appearance is, like, as much as it's sad to say, it just is a big part of, your role in the world. Like, women are beautiful, right? And our bodies are beautiful, and that's where we get a lot of, you know, not necessarily doors open, but it's just a big part of our identity. It's just a huge part. And so talking about it and talking about our experiences with that and the traumas that we hold and things that we've overcome and how we identify now. It was really powerful conversation. It's There was a lot of growth. There was a lot of things that had to do with the opposite sex and in reflection to our bodies, but mostly it was like about our bodies and us coming to a good place with them so that we can come to a good place out here.
You know, oddly, I believe that men have a few of those similar issues, but I believe they face an altogether different struggle today. But that's a rather sensitive topic. Let's cover that for another day. How about I have you back sometime and we can talk about that specifically?
I would love that because I'm very passionate about all of that.
Well, that's great. And we can catch up on your music and see how things are going there. Oh, hey, you just went to the Grammys, I hear. How did that go?
It was awesome. Um, I've always dreamed about it since I was a little girl. Having a Grammy, like being at the Grammys, was a big goal of mine. Still is. And so it was really special because I got to go with my best friend, and she also always dreamed about winning a Grammy. We're both on our own journeys towards that, and so we got to experience that together. We had a real like incredible designer dress us for the Grammys. Like we were best dressed and we didn't even get to walk the red carpet, but like everybody knew we were there. It was like ketchup and mustard because I was in this yellow getup and she was in this red getup. I mean, we just made a splash. And it was really incredible. It was great for the energy. She meditated while we watched things. Like we were very like soaking it in. It was growth too because a lot of the energy surrounding the day was like very angsty, very like it just wasn't an easy weekend, but that's what I love about growth is like things aren't all sparkly and fancy all the time. Like you can have these great moments, but they're surrounded by a bunch of like uncomfortable growth. And we had that. So I was like, but we walked through it, the valley, and we made it out the other side. It was great. It was extremely beneficial, mind, body, spirit.
So you can see yourself up there on stage in a few years. You got that goal for yourself.
It's always been the goal. The greatest part about being an artist to me is the channeling of the message and then the delivery of it. I get such a high from performing. Like I am a performing artist. That is my main focus. Nothing matters more to me than that.
That's great. Well, with your drive and your talent, I really think that you most certainly have a shot.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You are welcome. PHENIX Red, thank you for coming on the Boulder Zone with me today and allowing me to debut your latest song. I really appreciate that. All the best, girly. Stay safe. Guys, go check out her song and video, Cleavage, out on all of her social media platforms today, as well as the rest of her killer music. I'll have a link down there for you to do that. So please check that out. Paulie, thank you for what you've done today, buddy. Always appreciate you back there twisting those knobs and turning those dials. Hey, folks, thank you for tuning in. Enlightening and entertaining you is what this show is all about. More importantly, I enjoy answering your questions with sage advice and pithy ideas straight from the Manhood Operator Manual. Anyway, if you'd like some one-on-one time with me or to be on the show, boulderzone.com. Boulderzone.com is the place to go and make that happen. While you're there, visit my blog. I've got some pretty interesting masculine commentary and recommendations there for you as well. And guess what? You can even go old school and dial us up at 830-206-8282. And if you haven't yet, will you be my subscriber, pal? You've got the power to make that happen with just one little click. And if you enjoyed the show today, give us a like. Go ahead. Go ahead, do it now. I'll wait for you. Okay, so let's hear your comments below on the show. I enjoy getting them, and I get to them all. If you need a chuckle or a thought for the day, the Boulder Zone has a big, fat footprint on all the cool kid social media locales, the Facebook, the Instagram, the Twitter, the TikTok. Come on aboard there as well. We'd love to have you. So, until next time.
You know what you do? Get bolder.